Hello, it's Friday, so this must be the Wisdom Factory, because that's when we do these shows every week, or almost every week. Once in a while, a little break. And I'm Mark Davenport. I'm here with
Heidi Hörnlein.
That's who it is.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to be a couple, yes, and we're here in this series that we're actually falling in between our regular seasons, a special broadcast, and we're very, very pleased that we can bring this to you. We have two guests, and they are long respected experts in their fields. And first of all, we have Dr. Viviane Carter, and she will be introducing herself shortly after a few words from you. And we also have with us Monika Fruehwirth, who is a long-time can I say that? I think so. A spokesperson for European Integral and a pioneer.
Okay, we should say that the Wisdom Factory has the goal to spread the news of the integral worldview. That was our motivation to create this show. And you know what? You have forgotten the title. The title is, maybe it's because you are growing older and you forget a little bit. Can that be?
I'm no older than Monika. Come on.
The title is Growing Older Without Big Pharma.
Big Pharma.
And I think we should say that we are here in Paradiso Integrale in Umbria in Italy, and that we are a non-profit, and that we like you to come and stay with us here.
We didn't intend it to be a non-profit, but it's worked out that way, yes.
Anyway, I want to talk to you very little bit about the two ladies that we have here. I met Viviane in a Women's Wisdom Circle, which Arlene Munch has created, and we are meeting for about half a year or a year, I don't know, in irregular moments, but we are talking about very deep topics there. And once we talked about something like health issues and not doing the normal things we are normally doing, taking pills and, you know, going to the doctor all the time and you know, all these sorts which you normally do. And
normal treatments.
Normal treatments. And she said she has a completely different approach to it. And so I was inspired to ask her to come and share with us her approach and also see how it can facilitate growing older. Because as we know, normally people think when they are older, then here it begins to hurt, and then here, and then there, and everywhere, and then we are, at the end we are like this, and we want to avoid that. Okay, so for Viviane, afterwards I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit better and talk about yourself. But I want to come to Monika. Monika is an old friend of mine, about 15 years now that we know each other, and she also is connected with me via women's topics. She has created in Germany the Women Integral Wisdom Field, something like this in translation. And we met once a year and tried out to sort of workshop with each other. We were our own leaders and explored, on one hand, the integral worldview, does it really mean, and then how would the women's approach to that be? So I think that's enough for me. I give over first to Viviane, and I think you have said her name wrong. Can you repeat your name really right?
Mark, my name is Dr. Viviane Carson, as in Johnny
Carter.
As in Carter liver pills.
Carson.
So it's Carson, and that's the way to pronounce it.
Okay, and you are a doctor, but you said you have a lot of degrees, 7 degrees I saw in your website. So,
yes.
First of all, tell us a little bit about that, and then also how it comes that you are doing this work, what you are doing.
Okay, well, I do have 7 degrees, 2 of which are doctorates, and I have 17 submodality certifications in the field. I work as a holistic practitioner. I was trained originally as a psychologist and saw that I wasn't helping anyone to heal. I wanted to be able to help people to heal completely from the root cause, which is what I developed eventually, a healing method. And also, as a psychologist, I couldn't help people to heal physically and on any other levels. And so I developed a healing method over 36 years now that I call psychobiophysical healing, which is my trademark. Psychobiophysical in one word, because it works on all 7 human levels. So if you like, it can go into the 7 levels, but or if you prefer, we can wait until later to talk about that.
Yeah, we will wait a little bit, give Monika the possibility to present herself a little bit.
Well, by now everybody knows me who is watching, I guess. And I am very much interested in promoting the integral holistic worldview, as you said. And and of course, healing is something I have been concerned about all my life. Some things come naturally, and others I've never heard about 7 levels before, so I would be very much interested in learning more about that. And also, I was wondering, after looking at your website, at the amazing claims this process can provide. So everybody who is watching knows the integral worldview, but most of them won't know your approach. So I'd be very much interested in concentrating on you and not on me, and just giving some of the questions that might provide you to show us more than you intend to, hopefully.
Okay.
So, the 7, as I read, psychobiophysical healing.
Yes.
So you start with the psyche, or you start with the body, or how do you start when you first meet a client?
It's not a progressive thing. It is all-encompassing. So what I start with actually is to relax the individual, because when the relaxation occurs, all the autonomic nervous system functions slow down and normalize. So that's what I start with. So basically, I get people into an alpha brainwave activity, which means relaxation. And when people are relaxed, the unconscious mind is also open and receptive, and it makes it much easier for me to work with them, because I noticed as a psychologist that when people were speaking from their conscious mind all the time, we weren't getting anywhere. We would be repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. So, and then when I realized that once they were relaxed, it wasn't enough. That wasn't a complete healing method. I had to come up with a healing method, which is what psychobiophysical healing is. So it works on all 7 human levels. The first 3 are what I used to work with as a psychologist, the psychological, mental, emotional levels. The 4th one is the physiological. So I can work with people who have any physical ailment as well. We reverse diabetes together. We eliminate and help people to heal from fibromyalgia and various other painful conditions in only 3 treatments after the initial visit. So that's the 4th level, the physiological. The 5th level is the biochemistry in the system. So I don't have to send them out to be medicated. So I work completely free of any medications, free of having to prescribe any homeopathic remedies or anything like that. Because if you understand how the body works, the body seeks to heal itself naturally. The body seeks homeostasis, which is balance. And as long as there are negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative environment, there are many, many contributors to illness and dis-ease. And so what I get to is the root cause very quickly. So the other 2 levels are the actual genetic code of the person. So the genetics, way back when I was starting to work in this field 36 years ago, there was no research backing up what I was saying, that you can even change what you've inherited from your family. And back then, there was no research. Now we have the laboratory research to back it up, and only in the last 5 years. And the last level is the spirit. When the spirit is broken, the body follows. So it just makes sense to most people when I explain this to them. And so this healing method works in the background, sort of like an application that's working in the background of your computer. And they're not necessarily aware of when it kicks in and when it's not actually present. So it all combines in a 3-treatment session healing modality that I've developed. And so after the initial visit, I go into 3 treatments, and during those 3 treatments, people are healing. They're phase 1, 2, and 3. Each phase is different and completely and stands by itself, but is not complete in itself. So the person has to complete all 3 treatments in order to leave healthy and happy and healed, 10 out of 10 on the scales.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the root cause. So
Yes.
the root cause shows itself on all 7 levels?
The root cause, yes, is very evident to me. It's not evident to the patient necessarily or to other professionals. You see, here's the thing. Traditional, conventional medicine treats symptom. I treat the root cause. And that's why I have a high success rate, 100% success rate for 20 years now.
You said you were picky with the people you decide to heal, if they are open enough, or if they don't resist, or if they are desperate enough.
Well, one thing, I don't heal anybody. I don't call myself a healer. The person who wants the healing is doing the healing, actually.
Right.
And the healing is very different from a cure, as you probably know. A cure implies what medical doctors call an alleviation of symptomology, whereas a healing encompasses body, mind, and spirit and is complete. And the person knows when they're healed by the time they leave at the end of the 3rd treatment. And yes, I am careful because there's no point in taking someone's money if they're not going to heal. So my approach is completely the opposite of traditional medicine that seeks to take on everybody, spend as little time as possible with the patient, and get them out of there with a prescription. That's not what I do.
That was very amazing. Now I felt a lot of warmth when you talked. All my chakras, I felt terrific when you said that about the difference between healing and cure, and everybody curing themselves. Yeah. Mm.
Well, Doctor, you're in a receptive company here. 4 years ago, I came to Italy to live with Heidi, and I brought with me a drawer full of, I wanted to say a suitcase full, but there was some room for my underwear too, of prescription drugs that I've been taking under the Medicaid program in Florida. And this is for a half dozen different, very ordinary, everyday ailments of people my age. And when I got here, I just stopped taking them all.
You had blood pressure, you had diabetes,
cholesterol,
and whatever.
Glaucoma, a couple, 3 others too.
I said, is this true? Do you really need all this stuff? Yeah, my doctor has said I need it. Mm-hmm. And then I said, you know what? You try to take this off, the blood pressure, and every day we measure the blood. Mm-hmm. And it was perfect. Yeah. In diabetes, the next test of diabetes, nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, nothing. He doesn't take anything, and it's fine. Mm-hmm. So, for me, it is absurd idea to fill people up, especially when they get older and they need their forces to keep their energy, to fill them up with all this stuff.
Yes.
She said
Well,
it for me.
Well, that's the thing. In America, it's very common to give out medications and to go out and fill a prescription. But the point is that the pharmaceutical companies practically own the country, So doctors are trained to give out medications, or worse, to do surgery. So they're not trained to help people to really heal. I treat people who are in pain, in extreme physical pain, and most of the ones who call in are not prepared to hear me say you can be free of the pain completely. They just want pain management. That's all they've heard, pain management, which means continuing to manage the pain with medications. And what does it create? It creates a dependency. So most of these people are addicted to the painkillers. And the painkillers also create other side effects. So they're never free of the pain, they're never free of the side effects, and they never heal, which is a completely different approach. I interrupt the cycle of the pain through the spinal cord and the brain. So basically, this is what I work with: the brain and the heart, the two major organs that control everything in the system.
This is wonderful, because I just wanted to put in, we have a doctor here, a friend of us, who is working a little bit different, at least he tries, in the measure he can do it as a, how do you say, statally employed doctor. And he says the #1 cause of death is the side effects of drugs in Italy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People don't know that. People don't want to know that.
Going into a hospital is a #2 cause of death.
Yeah. So let us know a little bit how your treatment is structured. What are you doing to, for instance, to convince people that they can, or maybe you don't convince them, maybe you have another way, that they realize that they can be free of pain, that they can open their mind.
Well, it's very hard to convince those who are really addicted to the medications, and that's all they're seeking is the medication. I tell them I don't prescribe anything, so they ask me if I'm against medications. I'm not against their taking the medications. If they want to stay on the medications, that's fine too. In fact, most of the people I work with are on antidepressants and sedatives and sleep medications. Most of them have never had a good night's sleep most of their lives. So it's very hard to convince them that they don't need the medication in order to be well and to be healthy. So when I tell them that it's possible, I ask them if they're willing to open up their mind just to think of the possibility. And the possibility through their sense of imagination. So I ask them to leave their willpower at home, and I begin to work with their imagination and ask them to imagine themselves healthy first. And as soon as they're able to, they can begin to do that. I have so many cases of people I've worked with recently. For example, one lady that I just took on as a patient who is in deep, deep grief from having lost her son at age 49 from cancer. And when I spoke to her on the phone the first time she called me, she told me she couldn't walk, she had gained a lot of weight as a result. She was crying constantly. She was staying in bed, not moving, not getting dressed, and basically had given up on her life. She wanted to join her son. So I started to talk to her, and while I was talking to her on the phone, she said she felt this warm feeling. Did I send her energy? And I said, yes, of course. And so she said, well, I can get up. I can walk around. That's amazing. And so I've done one treatment with her so far, and she's already been to 6 stores, she told me, to do her Christmas shopping, and she's not constantly crying about her son. She is now able to think about her own happiness, which is what he would want for her. So she's so much better already after the first treatment. So this is just one example. I've treated people who have had a stimulator implanted in their spine for the pain, and they are so debilitated. One in particular came bent over into my center, and within the first session, not even the first actual treatment, but the first visit, he was able to begin to feel better. And so there is a way to treat pain without medications, and to treat insomnia also without the medications that only cause more insomnia. It's a matter of restoring their ability to sleep, basically, for longer and longer periods of time, so that by the end of the third treatment, they're able to spend 8 hours a night sleeping.
So what I'm interested in, I mean, if you had lived about 300-400 years ago, you would have been called a witch doing these things. How is the relationship of traditional medicine now when people get to know what you are doing?
I think she was about to say that some people call me a witch now. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's true, and you know, I would have been hung a long time ago for practicing what I practice. In fact, when I first started up my practice, I was getting threatening phone calls every day. For the first 5 years, people were calling me, threatening me, get out of town or else. And this was from physicians, psychologists, and one in particular who was a chiropractor who called himself a holistic chiropractor, which was interesting. But after a while, I got to know his voice, and I started to engage him in conversation. And I asked him what was going on for him. Well, his wife had been very sick for a long time. So I asked him to send me his wife, which he did. And I treated her in 3 treatments, and she was fine afterwards. She was having extreme panic attacks and also sleeplessness. And when she was healed, he believed in my work and stopped harassing me and invited me to meet with him and so on. So it was a complete turnaround.
What I'm wondering is, do you believe in the magic of communication?
Well, communication is an art. It's not magical at all.
Well,
but it creates magic. I understand what you're getting at.
That's what I was getting at, yes.
Yeah, I understand. Communication is so important. Most people can't communicate what they're feeling. And so they don't know their feelings, especially people who have put on so much weight that their feelings are blocked, literally, physiologically blocked. When a person is obese, there's no way they can get in touch with their emotions, except for anger. Anger is very easy to attain, and so most of them can get very angry. And so I work with them in such a way to make them aware of their emotions. And it's a gradual process, but we only have 3 sessions to go through. Excuse me. And so I've been able to help them in only 3 treatments by the end to begin to allow themselves to release the weight, because weight is an issue of protection, self-protection, from their own feelings, by the way.
Yeah, I think
I know.
this is true.
I know.
No arguments here. No.
No arguments, right?
Yeah.
So I think all illnesses have something to say about what is going on with you. So how do you detect it? How do you detect the root cause? For instance, you say now that a person who is much overweight has no access to the feelings. If a person doesn't want to have access to the feelings, there is something else behind, probably. How do you get it? Or are you so mainly intuitive?
Yes, I can pick up their emotions, and I can pretty well tell in the first 5 minutes what kind of a childhood they had, which doesn't mean that we go through the entire childhood, that you have to relive every pain you've experienced in your childhood. This is not psychotherapy. So basically, and I've written about it. I've written a book called You Are More Than Your Body, 7 Steps to Healing Body, Mind, and Spirit, which is available through me and through Amazon. And it explains the whole healing method and the fact that most people have post-traumatic stress dysfunction or disorder and are not aware of it. And this comes from something that happened in their childhood, usually. It's only one experience, and I pick it up very quickly, and I point it out to them, and then they relive that particular experience. But in order to help them to heal it, I don't have to get them to relive the whole experience. I just get them to tell me about it, and then I process it neurologically. And when it's processed neurologically, there is an alleviation that begins to happen of all kinds of behavioral patterns that have been occurring through their whole life. For example, someone who becomes maniacal about things, okay, who collects things or who has to have them in a specific place and so on. This is really based in the root cause. It's part of the behavioral pattern that has happened as a result of the PTSD that was created back then. And so PTSD is an invisible illness, if you would like to call it an illness. It's in every cell of the body. It's invisible. If I had an X-ray machine that could take a picture of the psyche, we would see a shadow running through the entire system that has been there from way back then in childhood and has caused other issues and other behavioral patterns in order to survive and in order to be able to make it through all the internal pain that is still there.
Well, I'm getting to the age now where I'm losing people I've known all my life, and of course my parents and many others. And as my understanding of this cycle of life grows, I look at the way people grow old, how they deteriorate, how they die, as sort of a continuing wave that was really there, from very early on in their life. And it's just the playing out of all of these forces. And it's not the disease. It's not, the thing that the doctor is treating. It's not, what the nursing home is managing. It's a completely different order of I'm almost karma in a broad sense of that word.
Yes. Yes. Well, every dis-ease begins up here in the mind and ends up somewhere in the body. Every single one with no exception, including growing old, getting sick, and dying. And so it's a mental set. And what we believe is what we achieve. And so it's a matter of changing our belief systems. And it has been shown now and proven that our beliefs even change our genetic code. And so that's part of what I work with in getting to that part of the person whose beliefs are creating their illness or their dysfunction. And then processing it. Because it's not enough to tell you this is what's causing the issue. We have to change what's causing the issue. And when I process it neurologically, there is a change that can come about. But there has to be a willingness on the patient's part to want to work with me, and that's why I'm careful about choosing who I work with. I turn away more people than I take on.
Because it needs quite a bit of courage and openness, no?
Right.
to undergo such a thing, because we are wired to want to keep on what we already know, and everything which we don't know, ooh, we try to avoid it. And even if people tell us it's better afterwards, better I know my misery now instead of risking that something unknown happens. So it needs a certain openness. And I wanted to say another thing. What often happened in the what we call the green era of development, that people said, when you are ill in this way, it's sort of your fault. And you say it in a different way. You leave the fault out. You just say it is because of a certain way of setting your mindset.
Yes.
And you, if you want to, you have the power to change that. And I think it's a completely different message, because if people think that it's their own fault and they have to hide because they're incapable and they better don't come out at all, that is, they are set up for misfortune, how do you say, that they can't make it. That's what I wanted to say.
Right. It's actually based on the law of cause and effect, basically. And you mentioned it, Mark, when you said karma. Karma is based on the law of cause and effect. And karma is not destiny. Karma is an accumulation of causes we have made in the past. And so once people understand they can liberate themselves by understanding that they have created everything they have in their life. It's a tough pill to swallow, to say, I'm ill because I've created it, but it's not about blame. It's not as if people stand outside and say, hit me with an illness, hit me with this, hit me with that. It's a matter of understanding that the unconscious mind is extremely powerful in that sense. And yet, when I first work with people, the first thing I do to lay the foundation for the healing is to put them in charge of their own unconscious mind. And that's huge. That's huge. Because once they're in charge of it, nothing can happen by accident anymore. And then there is no denial anymore about anything that's happened.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that the unconscious, which is now unconscious mind, for me, it's also wanting to protect the person. Because when these patterns were created, initiated, they had the purpose of saving in some way, keeping secure the person. Only they not so much functional, no? Maybe then they were, but now they are not anymore. But it is so far behind that we need to retake our power to rewrite the stories. But Monika, you wanted to say something before.
Yes, Mark and I are the same age, so we were born during World War II. I was born in Europe, he was born in the States. As everybody knows, Germany and Austria did a lot of soul searching, and you mentioned the unconscious, but the collective unconscious is still a different fact in the United States as it is in Europe. And this is something we are working on in Europe as integral community, how to create a new vision of Europe. And I was wondering, you are treating just American patients?
No, I'm not. First of all, let me explain that I am of French origin, and yet I've lived in many different parts of the world. And so I've lived in, well, by the time I was 10, I had lived in 4 countries and spoke 4 languages. So I was exposed to different cultures very early on. My parents believed that the greatest education came from living in different cultures. And so I understand that. So I have a deep-rooted connection to people of European origin, of course, being French. I also know of the downfalls of my culture and what that brought up in me, the judgment that I've had to let go of, the ego that I've had to let go of. All of these came in time for me through a very assiduous meditation that I've been doing for 36 years, day and night. So consciousness is something that is developed in oneself, and it's very important. And as we develop our consciousness, we raise our level of wisdom. And when you brought up Germany, I remember treating a gentleman who was German in the United States. His wife brought him in to see me because he was suddenly he was losing his temper, and he had become impossible to live with, and he was in his 70s by then, and he had completely forgotten about the root cause that I was able to bring up in him, and that is that when he was 4 years old in Germany, the war was going on, and his whole family was in the shelter underneath their home, and because of the bombing, their home collapsed upon them, and the whole family was killed except his father and himself. His father pulled him out of the rubble, and as they were leaving that area because they were fleeing for their life, they could hear in other homes people screaming for help. And that never left him unconsciously. And he had sublimated all of that, and it was suddenly coming up when he was facing his own mortality at a later age now. And so when I processed the root cause, which was this incident, he was able to be himself again. And they were so thrilled about it. They invited me to dinner in their city, which was far away from where I live. And he's been happy ever since. And in fact, the wife came in for treatment as well. So yes, there are cultural and how should I speak of it? You know, the Jungians believe in the collective unconscious, and that plays a part as well in the conscious mind, as well as the unconscious mind. And that has to be taken into consideration as well.
As you explained that now, the root cause is one single incident?
Yes. Now, there can be more than one incident, but it's usually the worst one. It's usually the worst memory, the most traumatic memory that creates the post-traumatic stress disorder. Yes.
Well, because I remember as a child the fear of the grown-ups. Being in one of these cellars, and so I never trusted grown-ups anymore from that, which was quite a good thing. So you always rely on yourself, and yeah. But of course, I always did what my mother said because survival depended on her at that time.
Yes,
and it's quite that's also a root cause. So
yes. Well, there's a root cause for every emotion that becomes the all-empowering emotion. Fear of adults, or fear of certain circumstances, fear of being alone, fear of the dark, fear and so on.
Or to be a very reasonable child. My mother always said, sei vernünftig, so be a very, what else can I do? Just to be very reasonable.
Yeah, I was wondering, first of all, I wanted to acknowledge the watchers who have appeared so far. This is Melanie Hall and Ruth Ann. She is asking where to ask your questions. Write it there where you asked where to ask a question, and we will address it. And then there's our friend from Russia who is writing in Russian, and I don't know if anybody of you is able to read this, Monika or Viviane. Do you know? So we don't know what he is writing. And there is Melanie too. And who knows, other people on YouTube. I've given out also the link to YouTube. I wanted to ask a question. Now with this, what happens with the refugees coming into Europe, and they leave a traumatic situation. So the post-traumatic stress disorder, can it also be so important in later age? And what could you do, you or people who are working like you, to prevent that these things are forming? So a sort of prevention of the negative outcomes. What can there be? And then I will ask your question, Roseanne.
Well, post-traumatic stress disorder is something that happens with trauma of some kind. It can be moving, changing countries, changing schools in the same country for a child. It can be parents arguing around a child. They're not aware that they're creating trauma in their child. It can be so many different things which cannot be avoided. That's life, you know. So you can't really protect your child from everything. You can have all the protection, your child can have all the protection he or she needs and then go to school and be exposed to something traumatic. So it's not possible. However, in terms of the people who are moving from country to country, their trauma is ingrained on a very deep level. And when they get to their destination, they're going to need treatment. They're going to need the treatment. For example, what I provide is very different from the regular medical allopathic profession, which will want to give them medications. And the medications will never really help them to heal.
This is the drama, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, my heart goes out to the children especially.
Who cannot make reason about it, who cannot, at least the adults can understand in some way, but for the children it's ununderstandable.
My daughter is an elementary school teacher, and they have refugee children from Syria. And she says, well, we can give them our love, but I don't know, that's not enough. Because they need competent and a little boy his older sister is in a higher class there, and he always, every 10 minutes he runs out and looks whether she's still there.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and my daughter, of course, she's very outgoing and with a big heart, and she really takes takes care of them, but still
It's very
so helpless.
Yes, and I've treated little children. I remember one little boy in particular who couldn't speak at the age of 6. He had not spoken. He had been so brutalized by his own family. Excuse me. And I just did one treatment. I processed the root cause with him. And again, you can't reason with a child, so I wouldn't be treating him the same way that I would treat an adult. Is just all physical and visual. And I did process the root cause and never saw him again, but the grandmother who had custody of him told me that he was speaking fluently. He was able to go back to his family of origin who had won custody of him again through the court system. So, you know, and children can be treated also. When I treat babies, infants, in my practice, and this I usually do in person, but I guess it can be done also through Skype and on FaceTime or any way that I have of seeing people like we are right now. I have the mother hold the baby against her heart, and I treat the mother. And the child, by osmosis, is through what we call entrainment, starts to feel better. For example, colicky babies or children who have hearing issues, otitis, you know, ear infections, and so on.
Yeah. You know, it's you mentioned Skype, for example, and it brought up the occasion that we're engaged in right now, where we're in direct contact, and I think there's some kind of, you know, we space that's grown between the four of us as we're speaking here, and a certain level of confidence and trust and genuine, benevolence toward one another. And this actually gave me a bit of fear as we were beginning the broadcast, because, you know so much about us, I thought, in this magical way.
And she sees you.
And you see me. And so where can I hide now that I'm on camera and you see me and hear my voice? And this is so human, and I know I have nothing to fear from you, but nonetheless, these things occur to me.
Yeah, and it's good that you notice them.
And she noticed that, of course.
And isn't the mind a beautiful thing?
Yeah. So now I'm coming the comments, but I wanted still to ask another question. The day has 24 hours, and there are so many people who need your help. Have you thought about creating a school or something to teach your approach to other people?
Well, this is a source of a lot of frustration for me, because many people have asked me if I can teach them what I do. And it's not possible to teach intuition, And my healing method, yes, I call it psychobiophysical healing in general. That's what it is, that it works on all those 7 levels that I've described. But it morphs itself. It changes with every patient I see. I'm not going to treat 2 diabetics the same way, or 2 people who have pain the same way, because they're not going to respond the same way. So how do I teach that to others? It's almost impossible. And I'm trying to come up with some way of something that runs as a thread through what I do, that I could possibly teach others and certify them in that. And that's something that I'm working on. It's even hard to work in a group setting, because, again, you have many people having different energies coming at me. It's a lot more difficult for me to sort out the different energies when there's a whole bunch of people in a room. But I do teach, and I do a program. If you scroll down my website, you'll see it. I call it the Mind-Body Healing Connection. And basically, what I do is a lecture, a digital slideshow. I do a demonstration of the healing in the audience through applied kinesiology. I take a question and answer period from the audience, and many people will speak about very private issues, even in an audience location. So it's really interesting to listen to these people and to answer their questions. And then at the end, I do a book signing if they're interested in that. And basically, I've been giving these as free events to nonprofit organizations whenever they ask me to come and do this sort of thing.
Oh, this is great.
Hey, we're a nonprofit, and we're in Italy.
Yeah, come over.
Hey.
I'd love to go back to it.
Good.
But, that would be a little difficult to do.
You just said it's not possible to teach intuition.
Mm-hmm.
But you can open up the ground, maybe.
Very true. Very true. And so when I work with people and I'm raising consciousness, that's basically what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's Ken Wilber's work, raising consciousness.
Yeah. We are very far with the time, and I want to remind the audience, afterwards we have a blab where we can talk privately, let's say privately, publicly, about all this, what we have heard here. I want to go to the comments. First, for short, I begin with the shortest. This is Melanie, and she says, for you, Dr. Carson, if you don't teach how it works, it will not last beyond your earthly presence. Well, you responded to it before. And then she says, Melanie, with this refugee crisis, you can read.
We will see so many problems as the children try to adjust. Children are resilient, but somewhere down the line they are awakened to the horrible sufferings they have endured.
Yes, and what is the question here? I don't see a question.
I guess we answered
No,
them
this
before
was
the
a
questions
comment.
were asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a comment. Here is a long from Roseanne, a very long comment, or I don't know if there is a question.
Mm-hmm.
I love.
Yes, at the end there is. I love Eve Siegel's human dynamics theory and practice based on sound science. She has simple 7-minute ritual she teaches children in refugee camps to help them trust their own nervous system to heal in its own way. It is stunning and reduces how many children are on medications. I also heard that in Japan, what the U.S. calls the millennium generation is called the strawberry generation because they are so pretty but bruise easily. How do we, raised with privilege, overcome how soft we have gotten as individuals and as societies? So there was a question at the end.
Yes.
Okay. Well, how soft we have come as a society. Well, I see quite the opposite happening right now, hardening instead. When I look around in this country, in the United States, where there is violence everywhere, we've had a shooting every week in the last few months, and not and no small loss of life, large loss of life, and so. I think that what we do need is a softening. What we do need is love. Love is always the answer. And I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about opening our hearts to being able to love ourselves first and others as a result. And that's the way to get through to other people with no language barrier, because love is international. It's felt. It's something that is felt. It's not something that has to be spoken about.
This is wonderful. And that leads me a little bit into what we will do next week with Jessica Romischer on Tuesday. We will have a session on Blab first, where we talk about music, the power of music, bring light into our lives with music, and we will also do some music. Mm-hmm. And then the week afterwards, we will have a Google Hangout show like this one, also on the wonder and relatedness which music can bring, because music doesn't need words.
Absolutely.
And can create connections.
Music to the soul, and music actually stimulates certain parts of the brain depending on the kind of music you're listening to. You can increase your memory. You can really massage your emotional pain. You can do all kinds of healings with music. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as we are coming to the end, I want also to how do you say, to lift the secret of what we have written here on top of our
reveal, huh?
Our window.
Yes.
Reveal.
Okay.
There is written bit.ly/big W big F -3. Mm-hmm. And that means this is the registration page for our next season, and we will talk exactly about relationships. Yeah. And the first part will be about love relationships. This will be a series of 12 episodes, love relationships, and then also relationship in work. Not only, between colleagues, but also inside of the structure of the workplace. So it will be a very interesting show. We have great guests, beginning with Jeff Salzman is coming, and Christina Palmas, and Martin Ujic, and Catherine Woodward-Thomas, and Martin Shervington, and David Ameland, and Cecil Green.
Martin Ujic, did you mention?
I mentioned him. Oh. There are so many in my head. There are many. The coming, we will also have a landing page where you can find the information. It's unfortunately not yet ready, but the link is where you can directly subscribe for the series. We will do it on Webinar Jam, not directly as it is here, because we don't know if we still will have event pages on Google. until April. It goes from 15th of January to 4th of April, every week on Friday, and it is free. So please join us there.
This time it's free. Next time,
who knows? And we could say another thing, which I normally forget. You know, I'm not very good in these things. Self-promotion.
Yeah, right.
I have created a Patreon page and ask you to support a little bit what we are doing here, and it's www.patreon.com then my name Heidi, HEIDI, and then the number 63. That's my age, my present age. So we would like you to support a little bit what we are doing here,
yes,
and
please.
we would be very, very, very grateful.
We would.
So at this point, we thank our guests.
Well, were they going to?
May I give you my website address?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
It's www.drvcarson.com. That's spelled DR for doctor, V as in Vivian, Carson, CARSON.com, and you will see hundreds of testimonials on the website.
Oh, you know, when you talk here like that, I don't need any other testimonials. I really got it. So thank you very much. Monika, do you want to let people know?
Yes, the Integrale Forum is a website, and you get very, very interesting new topics on your level of consciousness, about how red, the power drive. So it's we have very good people who translate whatever Wilbur publishes, and it's very interesting and very stimulating.
But it is in German.
In German, yes, it's in German. Unfortunately, it's in German.
Yeah, but they can go to the big Integral Life
Integral
website.
Integral Institute in Denver. Yes, they can go
this
there.
is the big hope of the new ideas.
Carson, I thank you, and it's been a pleasure meeting you. Great pleasure.
It was a great pleasure, and thank you everybody who has watched us and who will watch us in the future. Give us a like and write us your comments even later.
And we'll see them what?
We see you in about 20 minutes on Blab. When you scroll down on the event page, you find the link, or if you are on YouTube now, you don't see the link there. Just go to blab.im, and then in about 20 minutes, you can scroll down the live shows, and you see my name, Adelheid Hörnlein, and the same title as it was here, Growing Older Without Big Pharma. And you can join us, jump in, and talk with us. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So long, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.